Hi, Dr. Mom. Can we talk about meal times for a second? If your child eats the same 5 foods and has been doing that for months or years, it's probably not that they're just being stubborn. There's almost always more that's going on in the story. And in this episode, I'm going to share 5 different reasons this could be happening. I'm Steph Greunke, registered dietitian, mom of 2 boys, and the author of Mindset and Metabolism on Substack. I'm here to help you feel confident in how you care for your family with the nuance and practical tools that work in real life and not just in a textbook. I want to tell you about a mom that I recently worked with. Her name is Jess. Jess has a 5-year-old named Oliver, and he would only eat 5 foods: plain pasta, chicken nuggets, apple slices, and goldfish crackers, and then milk. Those were the whole list. Not he prefers those. Those were the only options. If the nuggets had a different brand name, meltdown. If the pasta had butter on it instead of plain, forget it. And Jess was told by more than one person that he was just being dramatic, that she needed to be firmer, that he'd eat when he was hungry enough. She tried it all, and every single mealtime became something she dreaded. What nobody told her was that Oliver's nervous system was actually working like it was designed to. It had become hypersensitive to certain sensory inputs. It made new and unpredictable foods feel overwhelming. It felt threatening to his nervous system. And once we understood that, we had a completely different roadmap, and over time, on his own terms, Oliver's food list grew. Here's the thing. Research puts a prevalence of picky eating somewhere between 13 and 50% of children, and it peaks usually between the ages of 2 and 6. The contributing factors aren't just preferences. We're talking genetics, temperament, gut health, anxiety, feeding dynamics at home. It's almost never just one thing. So let's talk about what all these things actually could look like. Number 1, it could be their nervous system. When your child refuses a food because of the texture, the smell, the way it looks, the sound it makes when they chew it, that's a sensory system doing its job. And oftentimes it's on overdrive. And this is way more common than people realize. Sensory sensitivity is now part of the diagnostic criteria for autism. Research shows that it affects somewhere between 50 and 70% of kids with ADHD. And those are just the kids who have a diagnosis. So a huge number of children have significant sensory sensitivities. They've never been evaluated though. They're just labeled as difficult at meal times. So when food refusal looks extreme, they're gagging, they're panicking, they have genuine distress, they have strong preferences, that's a signal that we could go deeper. So you can start by reframing what you're seeing. Document what you're observing, maybe specific triggers, the intensity of the reaction, how long it's been going on, and then bring that to your pediatrician. Ask for a referral to someone like an occupational therapist who specializes in sensory processing, or to a pediatric feeding team. You want someone who can look at the whole picture with you. Number 2 could be their gut. We know that the gut and the brain are a constant two-way street of communication. And in kids with a very restricted diet, typically a lot of white processed, low fiber foods, that gut microbiome can become less diverse. And that less diverse microbiome can actually increase anxiety and alter mood and change how their nervous system responds to new things. So it's this vicious cycle that can happen if your child accepts any fruit, any yogurt, any fermented vegetables. Those are gut health wins. You can build from what they already eat and enjoy. If there's chronic constipation, loose stools, frequent illness, a lot of bloating outside of that selective eating, again, that's another sign that gut health could be part of that feeding picture. So what to do? Look at what your child already eats. Identify any type of probiotic fruits, vegetables, kefir, fiber sources, nut seeds, incorporate those. And if you're unable to get any foods in, it's worth looking at a multi-strain pediatric probiotic. Look for one containing both lactobacillus and bifidobacterium species, particularly Lactobacillus rhamnosus GG, Bifidobacterium longum, and B. infantis. If gut health symptoms are showing up alongside the selective eating, remember, bring that to your provider. It could be a huge red flag, and a pediatric dietitian or a functional medicine practitioner or a pediatric gastroenterologist can help you connect those dots. All right, number 3, nutrient deficiencies. Of course, as a dietitian, I'm going to talk about these. And it makes sense that a limited diet can affect the variety of nutrients that a child consumes. But there are also certain deficiencies that can actually reinforce that picky eating cycle. Zinc is one of them. It's essential for the function of an enzyme that lives in the taste buds of the salivary glands. And so when zinc is low, taste perception gets distorted. Food can take the taste metallic-y or just wrong. So your child isn't making that part up. They're actually receiving a different signal. And a restricted diet often leads to low zinc, right? Because the foods that kids genuinely like to accept, the crackers and pasta, they're not great zinc sources. We want to look at animal foods, and that can be a little bit trickier. So how do you know if your child is low in zinc? You're going to want to get a blood test to really analyze that. And in addition to looking at the foods that they're eating. Iron is also worth looking at too, right? If they're refusing a lot of the animal proteins, iron can be low. So at your child's next well visit, ask for serum zinc alongside iron and ferritin. If zinc comes back low or borderline, you want to think about targeted supplementation and throw in some zinc-rich foods when you can, things like meat, pumpkin seeds, and certain dairy products. A pediatric dietitian can help you with that. Number 4, anxiety. For a lot of kids with severe food restriction, the refusal actually isn't about the food. It's about what's new or unexpected and what that represents to a nervous system that is already on high alert. So research consistently shows that children with food neophobia, the fear of new foods, have elevated anxiety, and anxiety links directly to heightened sensory sensitivity. The two really do feed each other. And so when a child approaches something that's new on their plate, their nervous system is running a quick safety check. For most kids, that's instantaneous and unconscious. And for a child with elevated anxiety or sensory sensitivity, that check can trigger a full-on threat response. So this is something you can't logic your way through, which is exactly why when we say, just try one bite or do reward charts, they rarely work in the long term, and it can actually make the avoidance worse. What does work is often lowering the stakes and building safety around food and creating repeated low pressure exposures. So let your child be near the food, touch it, smell it. Don't have a ton of expectations, especially in the beginning. This is the foundation of what food therapists call food chaining and sensory-based exposure. Let them play with it, get messy, and let them decide on their own when it feels safe. And number 5, let's talk about the whole environment, the mealtime dynamic. I want to say this one gently because I have enormous compassion for parents navigating this whole issue. And I also want to make sure the information is shared because that feeding relationship itself is part of the equation. When mealtimes feel stressful, when there's pressure, or bargaining, or begging, or anxiety from the adults at the table, kids do feel that. Their nervous system picks up on it. The most evidence-based framework that I know for helping with this is Ellen Satter's division of responsibility. We've talked about this on the podcast before. The concept is really simple. You decide what's served, when, and where, and your child decides when they eat and how much. That's it. It really lowers the stakes. But what you can do to help support variety is offer 1 or 2 safe foods alongside with a new or a challenging one at each meal. Eat the same food yourself. Don't comment on what they're eating. Sit together and try to reduce the stress at mealtime. Boring mealtimes are actually what the goal is here. If mealtimes have turned into something that you dread, I want you to know that it doesn't have to stay that way. There are lots of different practitioners who specializes in this and that can help your family. And we even have more information inside the Dr. Mom membership. You can head to drmommembership.com or find the link in the show notes. We offer 50% off for podcast listeners for their first month to try it out. Use code podcast50 at checkout. This is hard, but you've got this, mama.